Greetings, one and all. Welcome to the spookiest time of year. Spring! In all seriousness, this was meant to be released in October of last year, but you're getting this in spring. Why? Because March 22nd was my birthday, and I'm 30, meaning I finally left my 20s behind, which was a horror movie in itself, let me tell you. As such, I've decided to do this list now while I have the inspiration for it, since turning 30 has made me look back over the games I've played throughout the years. Well, that, and because this is my channel, which means I can post whatever I want. So, spring is now the spookiest time of year. I declare it, so it shall be! Anywho, when I was trying to think of a fun subject, the idea of the spookiest moments from my childhood came to mind, from gaming specifically. Yet I found that there weren't a whole lot of horror games that I'd played. Why? More than likely because I didn't get a hold of a whole lot of them as a kid thanks to my protective parents and my limited knowledge of which games to get. Most of the scares I had weren't from horror games, and even when they were, the majority of them didn't stick with me as much. This is why I decided to extend my parameters a little. First, I decided to include non-horror games, and then I decided to have a game I played when I hit my early adulthood, hence the title. There are more moments like this for me, but these were the ones that stuck out that I thought could make an exciting and entertaining list. I could have done one on the books I've read, since horror in novels tends to stick with me much more. But I wanted to experiment with the concept first. Or I may do it anyways. If you want to see that, feel free to talk about it in the comments below. Feedback is essential for me, and it's the only way I know what any of you are thinking. Alright, my dear fledglings of the night, let's begin our terrible tale, shall we? The absence of sound can be as terrifying as a cacophony of noise, especially if that sound leads to your grisly demise. When I was a kid, Tomb Raider was the first PC game I ever really had the chance to play. Not Putt-Putt, not Commander Keen, but Tomb Raider in all of its pointy, pixelated glory. I played it on my dad's computer, which had no sound, making the experience harder. If you consider the simple fact of how much the original Tomb Raider's game design relied on sound to indicate to the players when danger was coming. For the 90s, it was a great choice that I will praise till I am blue in the face. Though allow me to paint you a scene. A tiny red angel, around 6, is playing Tomb Raider in the middle of the night, entering a new, massive area with ancient trees and all sorts of fascinating things. She has already killed her fair share of raptors, and knew that there was something bigger coming her way. But because she didn't have the sound, she had no idea when or where it was coming. Then the screen shakes. I was so scared by this thing, I didn't know what to do, so I shot at it blindly, and when Lara was grabbed and killed in a rather violent way, her body being thrown side to side as a ragdoll by the terrifying dead-eyed T-Rex, little me stopped playing at that moment. Thankfully, I had an older neighbor who had played this game before, a teenage boy named Mikey, who helped beat this part for me. During his adventure into the Lost World, I sat next to him, absolutely petrified, trying to read a strategy guide to help him wherever I could. Years later, I'm happy to say I've beaten this T-Rex, but it's not nearly as terrifying with the sound as it was without. It could be that my kid brain was remembering this much more terrifying than it was, but still, childhood makes things much scarier than they actually are, as we all know. We are going from the lack of sound to the sound being the very triggering thing of a primordial fear that lies deep within. First things first, yes, there was a Heroes of Might and Magic game for the Game Boy Color. Also, no, it was not very good. And if you say it's good, you are wrong and a fool, or maybe I'm missing something. Between this and the Animorphs game for the Game Boy Color, I'm pretty sure it shaped my lack of enthusiasm for the RPG genre when I was a kid. Either way, peering at the tiny screen of the Game Boy Color in the middle of the night was an actual nightmare for multiple reasons. Outside of the fact that the only thing lighting up my screen was one of those terrible worm lights, that is. This was my first real exposure to the Western turn-based RPG genre and Heroes of Might and Magic as a franchise. Needless to say, this wasn't the best introduction I could have had, but that's not why this game was scary. To me, what scared me about this game was more of the music than anything else. The chiptune battle themes, sound effects, and the theme that played at the end of your turn. It was a tune that played in my mind long after I shut the game off, ingrained permanently in my brain not for how catchy it was, but for how much it terrified me. It's intense, ominous, and I hadn't played a game like this before. The idea of my units dying and poofing into dust as the battle music chirped on happily in the background shook me to my core. It pushed a button in my 8-year-old brain that said, no thank you. It did not help matters that because of the fact that I didn't have access to internet at the time, I had no idea what I was doing. My childhood self was flailing around in the dark for this one, and she didn't like it one bit. To this day, whenever I hear music from Heroes of Might and Magic for the Game Boy Color, I get pulled into some dark places. Such a simple soundtrack fills me with an insurmountable dread of being helpless and alone, watching my units die around me. Infinitesimal to the machinations of the universe, pondering my existence and my role in it all. Oh dear. This list was supposed to be much more lighthearted and fun and nostalgic. You know, when looking at the top 2 on this list, whoops. Spooky, scary skeletons, Little Red had an existential crisis. We're going to move on to the next entry since at least it has dinosaurs. I was a child during Chuck E. Cheese's heyday, as you can probably tell by my age. When going to other arcades, even as an adult, I find myself wandering to those big, full-body, brightly colored racing games or arcade shooters. One of those shooters being part of an extraordinary franchise that I hold near and dear to my heart. It is, of course, The Lost World Jurassic Park, the arcade game. And it terrified me as a child. Now, here's the thing about me, and more importantly, little kid me. I don't like loud noises or being surprised by someone. And what does the entire Jurassic Park arcade game have? Yeah, so this game was little me's greatest dream and worst nightmare all wrapped up into one. Imagine being a massive fan of dinosaurs and knowing everything about them. Then suddenly you're thrown into a game that makes you kill them en masse. Or they'll eat you. Sure, I'd seen Jurassic Park the movie, and its sequel The Lost World. Still, I had no idea what I was getting into by stepping inside this curtain-clad game booth. It's funny how this is somehow both a very fond memory and one that still makes me jump to this day. The Carnotaurus takes a special gold star for this because they based it off of its book counterpart, rather than anything you've seen in the movies, especially since it didn't appear until later movies. Semantics aside. It can turn invisible, and the way they made it move is genuinely unsettling. It doesn't help matters that this game is full of jump scares, which are the bane of my existence. Also, fighting against not just one, but 2 Tyrannosaurus Rexes? I may love the T-Rex, but this game makes me severely rethink my taste in theropods. Wait, no, not that much! Rexy's son, I'm sorry! Hold on, did we ever find the lineage for the T-Rex on Isla Sorna? Because they really never explained it in the films like they do in the novel. Wait, no, we're overthinking it. Is that to say I hate the game because of it? Absolutely not. This thing ate more of my parents' quarters than any other game out there. It's only one of my earliest memories of a visceral and raw video game experience that has stuck with me through all these years. The first time I played Silent Hill was with my best friend Gary in his brother's room where we weren't supposed to be. I indeed wasn't supposed to be playing an M-rated game either, yet it was too engaging for me to stay away. Truthfully, I was fascinated by the experience at the time, never playing a true horror game until then. For reference, I was 9 or 10 years old at the time. Now you must be wondering what scared Little Red so much about Silent Hill. The atmosphere? The monsters? The idea of being kidnapped by a crazy creeping cult? There's a lot of things to be fearful of in Silent Hill, but you want to know the real thing that scared me? The fate of Lisa. I grew attached to the character Lisa fairly quickly because outside of Sybil, she was the only friendly face around. I had secretly hoped that maybe she could escape with Harry and become a nurse anywhere else but the hellscape known as Silent Hill, only to find out what actually happened to her. She's been dead this whole time, trapped here with the rest, yet retaining her memories from her past life. Lisa has no idea that she's one of the monsters inside of Silent Hill. She has no idea she's dead, or in between dead, or whatever you classify the monsters in the first game as. When she slowly approached Harry in the scene where she starts to transform, it's heartbreaking, and it stuck with me decades after I'd played the game. Let me tell you something. I wanted nothing more than to actually help her, to hold her, to do something, and yet I was forced to watch Harry leave her behind. Lisa is someone who genuinely wanted to help, and you're led to believe that there may be a way for her to escape this place with Harry and Sybil, depending on your endings, only for the game to tear that rug right out from under your feet. At first, this doesn't seem scary, only sad. Which it is, but something wiggled its way into young Red Angel's brain and wouldn't leave. The mere idea of being unaware that you're slowly transforming into a monster, or have been one this whole time, is bad enough. Imagine, when you cried for help, the only person you've ever trusted shrinks back in horror and flees from your presence, too terrified of what you've become, leaving you to your fate without even giving you the mercy of death to finally end your suffering. What I'm saying is, I'm still angry at Harry for not even giving Lisa the decency of a mercy killing. His actions have locked her into a never-ending cycle of suffering and pain, while you could assert that when the game ended, that her suffering ended too. But the joke's on you, it didn't end at all! In Silent Hill 3, she's still there! I'm not saying that Harry killing her would necessarily work, but still, try to give this woman peace. You owe her that. Spoilers for the game Haunting Ground are incoming. In addition to that, here's a big ol' content warning right here and now. The story of the game Haunting Ground is messed up and disturbing. Implied cannibalism and sexual assault. If this makes you uncomfortable, I've time-stamped the video so you may skip to the closing remarks. Fun fact, I didn't play this game until I was 18 and had my first car, which means I had the ability to go out on my own and purchase games for myself without my parents looking over my shoulder. Newly minted adult Red Angel went to an independently owned game store and said to herself, I should buy a game. Which I did, and that game just so happened to be Haunting Ground. When I put it in my childhood best friend's discarded PS2, I didn't know what to expect. Then I played it. I bet all of you are wondering what in the world happens in this game. Since that is more than likely the case, in that case I'm going to give you a brief summary that has spoilers. Anyways, you're this young woman named Fiona who wakes up clothed in almost nothing except for a white sheet, imprisoned in a cage. You escape the cage, get spooked by a dog that later becomes your companion and a good boy, and manages to find a set of clothes that is already available to you by a maid who totally won't try to kill you later because she wants to be a complete human. Oh wait. Daniela is terrifying. If it wasn't for what happens later, she'd be the only reason this game made it on the list. The central plot of Haunting Ground is to run around, explore the mansion, and escape pursuers while petting the good boy known as Huey. The best dog and the bright spot in the entire game, In addition to Daniela, there's Diabilitas, who is only being manipulated by the other people in the mansion, which makes me forgive him slightly. However, he still does eat you in one of the death cutscenes, so there's that. While running, I noticed the more panicked Fiona got, the harder it was for her to see anything or respond to my controls. This is a genuine representation of what panic and fear can do to a person, which I applaud the game makers for. Though, if you're someone like me who has high bouts of anxiety, golly, this game affected me. I remember being so meticulous about finding all the hiding spots and mapping out on paper the escape routes because I knew that when my guard was down, something was gonna come after me, and every single time I was right. I don't typically verbally scream or yell in fear at horror games, but I made so much noise during this. I had to mute the screen whenever I died because the noises made my stress-based acid reflux act up every time. It has been said in various reviews that this game is not scary. Instead, it is disturbing. I only partially agree with that. Lorenzo straight up tells Fiona that he wants to impregnate her and force her to give birth to his clone children. Mind you, Lorenzo is closely related to Fiona.
Don't worry. I do not intend to kill you. If you would just lend me your womb.
In the worst possible ending, this terrible fate befalls Fiona. While I didn't get the ending myself, reading about it, then watching the cutscene later on YouTube, still sends chills up my spine to this day. We don't see Lorenzo committing the act in question, but we see the results. The game skips ahead, and we see a heavily pregnant Fiona laughing maniacally as the screen fades to black. Haunting Ground is in its own league of terror more than any other game that is on the market today, and I stand by that. I remember being so freaked out about it that I actually sold it back to the game store I got it from. Considering the price that Haunting Ground goes for now, it was a silly decision. But it was an impulsive reaction to something that shook me to my core. It lingered in the back of my mind for years, every aspect of the game. I actually wrote an essay about it years later. I'm planning on reworking it into a video either sometime this year or next, if I have the time. The horror genre is one of my favorite things to talk about, and I admit it's a freeing experience to extrapolate on the things that scared me as a kid, and a very jumpy young adult. While I have quite a few more of these little moments and memories scattered around my head, I'll leave you with these for now, with the implication that if you ask for more personal Red Angel experiences for countdowns, or anything of that nature, you may get it. I'm Red Angel, and I'll see you next time.